Good evening, everyone. My name's Adam Minsky, and I'm the President and CEO of UJA Federation of Greater Toronto. I'm so pleased to welcome you to our 2021 annual meeting. We, of course, would have loved to be meeting in person this year, but given the public health situation, we felt that an online event was the best way to ensure that the largest number of community members could participate comfortably and safely. We certainly hope to be in person for next year's annual meeting. This past year, much like the year before it, has been incredibly unpredictable. Yet, through this unpredictability, we have seen again and again that even in the most uncertain of times, the one thing we can truly count on is community. So before we begin tonight's program, I want to thank all of you who've been part of our efforts during this very challenging time, whether as a volunteer, lay leader, donor, and/or community professional. All that we simply do would not be possible without you. On behalf of UJA Federation and the thousands of community members here in Toronto and around the world who are counting on us, thank you. Before I ask our chair, Linda Frum, to officially begin tonight's meeting, I'd like to take a moment to introduce Rabbi Yirmi Cohen. Many of you who've been involved in UJA will know Rabbi Cohen personally, as he spent many years volunteering with us, just as he does for so many causes in the community. It's been our practice when we held our annual meetings in person to have a rabbi begin the program with a few words of Jewish inspiration. Because our community is blessed with terrific and diverse rabbinic leadership, you can count on us to invite a different rabbi every year to begin our annual meeting. Rabbi Cohen, it's so meaningful to all of us at UJA that we have you sharing some words with us tonight, albeit virtually. Over to you.
Good evening, friends. As we gather for the UJA annual meeting, as a Kohen, a descendant of priests from the time of the temple in Jerusalem, I'm going to recite the Birkat Kohanim, the priestly blessings. The priestly blessings have been recited by the Kohanim since biblical times. Today, Ashkenazi Jews recite these blessings in the synagogue during the festivals, and the Sephardic Jews recite them daily. God granted the descendants of Aaron the ability to give over the priestly blessings. It is one of the most uplifting moments in Jewish life as the congregation embraces in their prayer shawls their talit in a divine hug. During these days of COVID-19, I think we all can use a divine hug. As a child, I vividly recall going under my father's talit, and then my child would go under my talit in a physical manifestation of the divine hug. I'm sharing it with you today because just like UJA is concerned with the welfare of the entire Jewish community, Israel, and the entire Jewish people, this is a prayer for the welfare of the entire Jewish people, asking for God's blessing, protection, and peace. Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe lemor, daber el Aharon vel banav lemor, ko tivarachu et bnei Yisrael amar lahem, yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, yo'er Adonai panav elecha v'choneka, yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yaseim lecha shalom, v'samu et shemi al bnei Yisrael v'ani avarachem. May God bless you and guard you. May God shine his countenance upon you and be gracious to you. May God turn his countenance toward you and grant you peace. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi Cohen, both for that meaningful message and for all that you do for UJA in the community. Now it's my honor to introduce our chair, Linda Frum.
Thank you, Adam, and thank you, Rabbi Cohen, and good evening, everyone. We are so grateful you joined us tonight as we pivoted to a virtual meeting for the second time. The theme of this evening's program is Securing Our Shared Future, which speaks to UJA's unique mission to address the most urgent challenges facing our community today, while building a community that will continually grow and thrive well into the future. While this vision is at the heart of all that we do, it is especially relevant when it comes to our multifaceted efforts to combat anti-Semitism. Later in the program, we'll be delving into this topic in more depth. But we'd like to begin with the agenda that was emailed to the voting members in advance of tonight's event. There will be 2 meetings tonight. The first is an election for the purpose of choosing half of the number of individual council members from among the qualified candidates duly nominated by the nominating committee or by any 7 community individuals. The second is a meeting of the council members. During both meetings, only those individuals who are voting members will be required to do so using the voting system that will appear on their screens whenever it is time to vote. This information was also included in the program book that was circulated to council members ahead of the meeting. I will act as chair of the meeting and Serena Koshitsky will act as the secretary. Let's get started with tonight's first meeting, the election of half of the individual council members. For this, there is only one order of business. This list includes those persons who were elected for a 2-year term at last year's annual meeting to cover 2020 to 2022. This is for information purposes only. And this list includes those individual council members nominated for 2021 to 2023. I am advised that Leslie Richmond moved and Sheldon Diesenhouse seconded the motion that those persons listed on your screen be elected as individual council members for a 2-year term. Council members can now see the contents of this motion on their screens. And we ask all council members to follow up the prompts and vote accordingly. And you can do that right now. Just waiting to get the results of this resolution. And with 100% in favor, I declare the motion carried. The same procedure will be followed for all subsequent motions that will be brought forward at our annual meeting this evening. As the formal business of this election meeting is now complete, I declare that this meeting is terminated. We are also pleased to recognize our group council members, who are those voting members admitted by community Jewish organizations in our community. At UJA, we are so fortunate to partner and work closely with such a remarkable group of community organizations. Thank you for all the work that you do to keep our community strong. This list includes those group council members for this year.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Rosenthal, and I'm the Vice Chair of the Board of UJA Federation. With the permission of the Chair of the meeting, Linda Frum, I will lead this portion of the annual meeting as we move to the formal meeting of our council members. In order for business to be transacted, 25 or more council members must be present. I'm advised by the Secretary that there is a quorum present, and the notice of this meeting was duly published as required by the bylaw. Therefore, I declare this meeting to be regularly called and properly constituted for the transaction of business. The first item of business will be the approval of the minutes of last year's annual meeting. Copies of the minutes were circulated, together with the program, to all council members ahead of the meeting. I'm advised that Evan Piltz moved and Susan Steinberg seconded the motion to approve the minutes of last year's annual meeting. We'll see a poll come up. Council members can now see the contents of the motion on their screen. Council members, please cast your vote. We have 95% approval and 5% abstained. I declare the motion carried. Thank you. Our next order of business is the ratification of the appointment of the trustees of the Jewish Foundation of Greater Toronto. The list currently shown on your screen includes those names of the individuals to be appointed as 2022 Foundation trustees, with Leonard Abramsky as the chair of the Jewish Foundation trustees. We will now ratify the list of Foundation trustees. I'm advised that Carmela Cerbriani moved and Stephen Altbaum seconded the motion to ratify the appointment of Foundation trustees. Council members can now see the contents of the motion on their screens. Council members, please cast your vote. We have 99% approved and 1% abstained. I declare the motion carried. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ariella Roringer, and I serve as treasurer of UJA Federation of Greater Toronto. At UJA, we deeply value the trust our community places in us, and we place a high premium on accountability and transparency. Accordingly, you can view the past fiscal year's financial statement online at jewishtoronto.com/financials. In the email we sent yesterday with the link to this event, we also included a link to this year's annual report. It provides a brief look at the progress we've made in 2021, as well as an overview of the financials. This is also available to view online at jewishtoronto.com/2021-annual-report, or you can contact me for the site. I will now briefly present the financials in relation to UJA's annual campaign. This was, of course, an unusual year, once again, in that our 2021 annual campaign built on the successful emergency campaign we launched in 2020. You will notice in this year's financial highlights that our reporting includes both dollars raised and dollars allocated from our regular annual campaign and emergency gifts. When we launched our 2020 emergency campaign in response to the tremendous growth in needs due to COVID, we raised a record $86 million in annual and emergency gifts. The generous support of this campaign allowed us to deploy significant emergency allocations to key partner organizations from the fall of 2020 up to late 2021, with continued allocations to take place in 2022. Recognizing that the pandemic is posing a multi-year challenge and having an enduring impact on our communities most vulnerable, we determined that it is strategically wise to deploy our emergency allocations on a multi-year basis to address these continuing needs. Emergency allocations have been dedicated to meeting the needs of our communities most vulnerable and preserving the essentials of Jewish life, with a focus on bolstering our Jewish social safety net and reducing financial barriers to core Jewish experiences. Our annual campaign this year became a rally for recovery. While continuing to meet the comprehensive needs of the community, We prioritized areas of emerging challenge: food insecurity, mental health crises, fragile access to Jewish experiences and programming, and the rise of anti-Semitism. As of November 30th, 2021, we have raised over $47.6 million for our annual campaign this year, representing over 9,200 gifts and 75% of our stated goal to date. I wanted to take the opportunity as well to express a heartfelt thank you to the thousands of donors and volunteers who have worked tirelessly to raise the funds needed to get our community through this very challenging period. 2021 was a critical turning point for our community, and you were there for us, as you always have been. Thank you so much. We are also immensely grateful to our incredibly generous corporate sponsors for continuing to invest in UJA's work in this challenging year. Your commitment to our cause means so much to us. Thank you.
I would like to take a moment to thank the board members and board guests who are completing their terms of office tonight. Your leadership over these past few years, especially this one, has been tremendous. It has been a great pleasure working with these individuals. We thank the following outstanding individuals: Gary Diamond, Jenna Kellner-Israelski, Serena Koshitsky, Alex Krawczyk, Keith Ray, Leslie Richmond, Bram Rosen, Shell Rosenbaum, Carmela Cipriani, Lori Sheff, and Michael Sherman.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Warren Kimmel, and I'm the immediate past chair, as well as the chair of UJA's Governance and Nominating Committee. This year, we had a unique call for Jewish leadership. The COVID-19 crisis and the recent rise in anti-Semitism are an important reminder the strength of our community and our ability to meet these threats today is thanks largely to the hard work and dedication of those who came before us. When I think about my own grandchildren, I'm sure every grandparent joining us this evening feels the same way. It's clear that we have a responsibility to ensure the next generation continues to enjoy a strong and thriving community in Toronto and throughout the Jewish world. With this in mind, I'm so pleased to share with you that Debbie and my wife and I are co-chairing a new initiative called the Jewish Future Pledge. This very special program, which is being run in partnership with the Jewish Foundation and UJA Federation, has a simple but powerful ambition: to encourage every member of our community to commit that upon their passing, at least half of the funds they intend to leave to charity will be directed to Jewish causes. Whether one intends to donate $10 or $10 million, signing the pledge is an important statement of commitment to our shared Jewish future. I encourage you to reach out to us or any member of the UJA team to learn more and to get involved. Continue with tonight's business. According to UJA Federation's bylaw, the terms of some of the existing directors of the Federation come to an end at this meeting, and new board is to be set in place. The list currently shown on your screen indicates the board nominees to be elected at our meeting. All are to be elected for a 2-year term. All these nominees were nominated by the UJA Federation Governance and Nominating Committee in accordance with our bylaw. I'm advised that Lori Sheff moved and Hartley Mintz second the motion to elect the incoming board members listed on your screen. Council members, please cast your vote. I declare the motion carried with 99% approved and 1 abstention. Thank you. The list currently shown on your screen includes the names of the UJA Federation 2021-2022 board. With those board members who were elected at our meeting, our board members currently serving their 2nd year of their term, and board guests. To the new board members, we wish you a mazel tov on your work in the year to come. According to our bylaw, the chair and vice chair of Federation shall hold office until the annual meeting following their election and are entitled to be re-elected on 1 more occasion. I am pleased to report that the Governance and Nomination Committee has nominated, in accordance with the procedures set out in bylaw, Linda Frum to be re-elected chair and Jeff Rosenthal to be re-elected as vice chair of UJA Federation. I'm pleased to put forward a motion that Linda Frum be re-elected chair and Jeff Rosenthal be re-elected as vice chair of UJA Federation. I'm advised that Shale Rosenbaum moved and Allison Himmel second the motion for such an election. Council members can now see the contents of the motion on their screen. Council members, please cast your vote. Awesome. Okay. I declare the motion carried. And Linda and Jeff, they really want you to lead. We want to wish you a lot of strength, and we should go from strength to strength. Mazel tov. I would like to thank the members of the Governance and Nomination Committee who worked diligently to ensure the community is well represented by seeking our experienced communal leaders to serve on the council and on the board of directors. The names of the members of the council now appear on your screen.
Thanks, Warren. The next order of business is the appointment of PricewaterhouseCoopers LLP as public accountant for the group of corporations of UJA Federation of Greater Toronto. An auditor will not be appointed to those corporations which are not required to appoint an auditor, and it will be resolved to dispense with the requirement to appoint a public accountant pursuant to the Canada Not-for-Profit Corporations Act. I'm advised that Debbie Kimmel moved and Adam Bacor seconded the motion in relation to the appointment of the auditor. Council members, please cast your vote. We have 97% approved and 3% abstention. I declare the motion carried. As the formal business of this meeting has now been completed, I declare that this meeting is terminated. There are many challenges facing our community, and the next year will be crucial. But I believe that under Linda's leadership, we will pull together through this as a stronger community. I'd now like to introduce our final part of tonight's program, an intimate conversation between Adam Minsky, Linda Frum, and Stephen Farber about the recent rise of anti-Semitism and what UJA is doing to confront this challenge.
Good evening, everyone. In advance of tonight's annual meeting, we wanted to get together for a brief chat here in the Leopoldson Theatre in the Charlotte and Louis Steinberg Family Cultural Pavilion. This beautiful space is part of the new Chef Family Building, which together with the Donald Gales Family Pavilion is home to the expanded Prosserman JCC on UJA's Sherman campus. We're so excited that this fall, the JCC reopened to welcome community members to enjoy these outstanding new facilities. If you haven't yet been here, I really encourage you to explore some of the programming and events taking place, because it truly is a best-in-class center of Jewish life in our city. Tonight, we want to spend a few minutes exploring the rise of anti-Semitism, what it means for our community, and what UJA will be doing to address this growing threat in the coming months and years. And I say years because we're under no illusion that something as complex and insidious as anti-Semitism can be resolved overnight. This is a fight our community needs to take on for the long term, which is why it is so important that we are prepared and equipped as a community to do so. I am pleased to be joined by Adam Minsky, our President and CEO, and Stephen Farber, our Senior Vice President for Countering Anti-Semitism and Hate. While it's impossible to do justice to a complex topic like this in the span of just an evening's program, what we'd like to do is to take the next 20 minutes or so to hear insights from Adam and Stephen on UJA's approach to this challenge. I want to begin on a bit of a personal note. As many of you know, I stepped back from the Senate this year to dedicate my time as a volunteer to addressing this issue. In retrospect, one of the reasons I did so was because I had seen the world change so much in the relatively brief time I was on Parliament Hill. When I arrived in the Senate in 2009, it felt like a very different time to be in public life and openly Jewish. There was a sense of welcoming and acceptance, that you could be proudly Jewish and a representative of your community as part of representing Canadians from all walks of life. Looking back, while I never felt unsafe as a Jew in public life, I certainly felt that the temperature has changed over the last 12 years. When I think about Jews entering politics today, my sense is that they will have a more challenging time than I did when I first arrived in Ottawa. For Jews in public life, as for Jews active in all parts of Canadian society, it seems as though the waters we have to navigate are much more complex, and the animosity we face is much more overt. Adam, I want to ask you what your sense is about how the landscape has changed and what we're facing.
It's a really important question. What happened in May is very much the story of a changed landscape. With the wave of Hamas terror attacks on Israel, we saw a surge of hatred directed against our Toronto Jewish community and many other Jewish communities around the world. While this isn't new, the volume and nature was a whole new level of intensity. We saw anti-Jewish violence in our city, intimidation and verbal assaults targeting the heart of our Jewish community, vicious hatred online fueled by some of the world's leading voices on social media, pressure on local businesses to denounce any ties with Israel and the Jewish community, boycotts targeting Jewish cultural organizations, and voices in the political sector expressing disturbing views towards Israel and not receiving the kind of condemnation that they would have faced in the past. All of this suggests that anti-Semitism is increasingly moving from the margins to the mainstream of society.
So Adam, what do you think is fueling this change? And more importantly, what can UJA do about it? There are a lot of organizations in our community who address this issue. And I think a lot of people want to know what is the unique UJA role and how can we also work with others in this space?
Taken together, I see 4 key lessons for us. The first lesson is that our traditional focus on working with leaders and influencers is no longer sufficient. The combination of populism, polarized social movements, and technology have meant that key influencers in Canadian society are more vulnerable than ever to the influence of mob pressures. This is especially dangerous as those who seek to marginalize Jews are hitching their toxic agenda to the worthy causes of anti-racism and human rights. For decades, our strategy to combat anti-Semitism has been naturally focused on key influencers in Canadian society. With our community being 1% of Canadian society, it made sense to target outreach to those who are the gatekeepers of society and can use their influence to keep anti-Semitism on the margins. We now need to complement this approach with a mass strategy to ensure that the Jewish experience is understood throughout Canadian society, not just at the top. But a mass strategy will only be successful with mass engagement, starting within our own community by empowering community members to play an active role and building new allies throughout Canadian society who will stand together with us. Second lesson is that our strategy needs to be rooted in data and an evidence-based approach. We need to have a rich understanding of the experiences of Jewish community members with anti-Semitism and how this is changing. We also need to have a sophisticated understanding of the attitude towards Jews and Israel in broader Canadian society, as well as the messages and facts that will open minds and create allies. The third thing that I take from the experience that we've just had is if we want to achieve a greater impact, we need to strengthen a broad coalition of organizations involved in countering anti-Semitism. You're quite right that there are a number of wonderful organizations active on this issue, some of whom we have invested in significantly, such as the Centre for Israel and Jewish Affairs in Hillel, Ontario, and some of whom we've started to collaborate with, but not funded, such as B'nai B'rith Canada and the Canadian Friends of the Simon Wiesenthal Centre. I see UJA's role in this area as similar to our role in other fields, such as the Jewish social services and Jewish education. In those arenas, we don't replace the work of our partner agencies and schools. Rather, we look at the system as a whole and seek to make it stronger by addressing challenges that no one organization can take on alone. The goal is to strengthen and build on the most important work already taking place so that our community can make an even bigger impact. Fourth lesson for me is that this is a borderless issue, which is why it's important to tap into the global network of Jewish organizations to which we're connected. This is essential to identify solutions being used elsewhere that may be adaptable to a Canadian environment, but also to export the important work we achieve here for the benefit of our partner communities. From UJA's perspective, each of these four lessons speaks to our core competencies as an organization. We have a unique role to play as a community convener, both in terms of coordinating organizations and reaching and mobilizing tens of thousands of community members to advance a mass strategy. We have particular skills in the area of developing an evidence-based approach to big challenges like this one, particularly through research, analytics, and sharing of best practices. We also have an ability to connect with Jewish organizations on an international level. We are part of a delivery system plugged into 150 Jewish communities across the continent, as well as our overseas partners, to take what we pioneer here to make an impact far beyond the Greater Toronto area. We also have the ability to invest in professional leadership, which is why it was so important to recruit someone like Stephen Farber, who could apply his unique skills to lead our work in this area.
Thank you, Adam, and that's actually a great segue to introduce our new colleague, Stephen Farber. For those watching who haven't yet met him, Stephen brings a phenomenal blend of community, corporate, and diplomatic experience to this new role. Having originally begun his career in the financial sector, Stephen went on to work for former Foreign Affairs Minister John Baird, Middle East Quartet Representative Tony Blair, as well as the Canadian Embassy in Israel. Originally from Ottawa, Stephen has held a number of key national leadership roles in the Jewish community for many years, including with our partner Jewish Federations of Canada, UJA. Stephen, welcome. We're tremendously grateful that you have taken us on, and you're in this role now for a few weeks, and it's still early days. But building on what Adam said about the changing landscape, can you share with us your insights into what UJA's vision will be as our community needs to adapt to this new challenge?
Thank you, Linda and Adam. I'm grateful to be part of this extremely important work. As Adam noted, UJA has been investing in this cause through a variety of strategic pieces, including advocacy through CJA, campus activism through Hillel, Ontario, Holocaust education through the Neuberger Center, and more recently, physical security through UJA Community Security. We're starting from a very solid foundation. The key is to see now what we can do differently, both in terms of strengthening these current efforts and creating new tools to address emerging challenges, because we're now in an environment that's very different from the one we were in just a few years ago. Adam identified 4 lessons learned in May. Maybe it's the Pesach Seder that makes us think of ideas in terms of 4s, but I also see 4 key elements that are essential to the path forward. First, uniting our community. Our community can no longer afford to operate in silos. We will be working to unify and coordinate a range of local Jewish organizations active on this issue, ensuring a higher level of community collaboration. The goal is to bring to bear the full power of our community to confront this shared threat, with each organization playing a meaningful role according to its unique strengths. This includes UJA-funded partners, such as the one I've just mentioned, as well as organizations doing important work that we haven't necessarily funded, but have begun to collaborate with. A key part of this will be to develop the research and community mobilization tools, from public opinion studies to national gatherings of Jewish community activists that will ultimately bring together and benefit all organizations active on this issue. The second element is mobilizing people, including Jewish community members and allies of all backgrounds. There are many people out there who want to make a difference, but don't necessarily feel they have the knowledge, skills, or meaningful opportunities to get involved. This is especially true with online and on social media, which is where our community is really feeling the pressure of growing hate. This is why it is so important that we do more to empower community members to play a role, both online and offline, in pushing back against these trends. Investing in digital advocacy is, of course, a big component, but we also need to prepare the next generation of Jews at an earlier stage to navigate these issues with greater knowledge, confidence, and pride in being Jewish. This is where UJA's extensive connections in Jewish education and identity building through our partner day schools, camps, campus groups, and JCCs represent a real opportunity to strengthen our youth. The third element is shifting opinion in broader Canadian society. As Adam noted, this means building a bottom-up approach paired with our continued top-level outreach, leveraging the power of Jewish activists and allies as our partners. It means pushing back and creating positive change within key sectors where anti-Semitism is growing, be it in workplaces, in the arts, in social movements, or in academia. It means ensuring that the Jewish experience is properly included, not erased, in diversity and anti-racism initiatives throughout society. This isn't a moment to retreat from these difficult arenas, but rather to double down on our outreach and become even more assertive about protecting our rights and freedoms, of course in a way that's strategic and effective in opening minds and bringing allies on board. The fourth element is to continue the important work of changing the public policy landscape, because the decisions that take place on Parliament Hill, at Queen's Park, and at City Hall still very much matter to the well-being of our community. At a time of growing populism and mob pressures on public officials, it's even more important that our voice is heard if we're to secure meaningful support from elected representatives and leaders across the spectrum of politics. To your earlier point, Linda, the political environment is much more complex and challenging for our community, and success in this area will be crucial to the success of the overall strategy.
Steve, with an issue like anti-Semitism, it's very easy and natural for our community to focus on the challenges and threats we face. But there's an argument to be made that addressing our vulnerabilities first requires us to look at our strengths as a community. Again, recognizing it's still early days for you in this role, what's your sense about our strengths as a community? In other words, as you move forward with this important work, are there things that give you confidence that our community is up for this challenge?
There are a lot of things that give me confidence and speak to our strengths as a community. While there is certainly heightened concern in the community about anti-Semitism, there's also tremendous interest in taking cross-community collaboration to a whole new level. This is especially true among the key Jewish organizations active on this issue, and the conversations I've been having in my first few weeks have been really positive. There is significant goodwill and mutual respect among the various organizations and a desire to work together in a whole new way. So too, the extraordinary natural talent within our community is a powerful strategic asset. If you look at many of the areas where we're seeing a growing challenge, whether online, in the arts sector, in the corporate world, on campus, And in academia, we have a large number of community members who are leaders in these sectors and have significant insights and expertise to offer. The key is to engage, to listen, and to find ways to get people plugged into the cause so we're all standing together and supporting one another as a community, rather than each of us standing on our own and fighting these battles as individuals.
Thank you, Stephen, and thank you, Adam, for sharing your insights on this crucial priority. Well, we've just scratched the surface, and there's so much more to say. My hope is that each of you at home found this conversation a helpful window into our plans for addressing what is really one of the most, if not the most important issue affecting the future of our entire community. I'm grateful, Adam and Stephen, for your leadership. And like Stephen, I too am confident that we are up for the challenge as a community, thanks to the volunteers, donors, and professional staff at the heart of this organization. With that, we will return to the main program.
Thank you, everyone. This is actually the end of our main program, but I do want to end by thanking you all for tuning in. We are so pleased that so many of you chose to join us virtually from across the community. We cannot wait to see you in person in the near future. We really hope, and we wish everyone a very healthy and happy 2022. I want to end by thanking Ariella Werninger, Jeff Rosenthal, and Warren Kimmel for conducting tonight's formal governance. I want to thank all board members, especially those who are ending their terms tonight and those who are now onboarding. A special thank you to Jeff Rosenthal, UJA Federation Vice Chair, and lastly to Adam Minsky and the entire professional team at UJA, not only for your hard work in preparing tonight's program, but for all that you do for our community. Thank you. Thanks to everyone. Thanks for joining. Thanks for your continued support. Good evening.